Welcome to Sunny's Mindset Lab. Today, we have a very special guest, David Goggins, the author of Can't Hurt Me. We're diving into his unbelievable journey of resilience, discipline, and mental toughness, and exploring the tools anyone can use to push far beyond their limits. David Goggins?
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to walk your listeners through the lessons from Can't Hurt Me, because everything I talk about, every challenge, every mindset shift, is something anyone can apply to transform their life.
David, let's start with this quote from your book. It's a powerful and direct challenge. Where does this perspective come from? This idea that comfort is actually dangerous.
David Goggins, it comes from living it. Look, our society is engineered for comfort. The easy path is always right there in front of us. But I found out the hard way that the easy path leads nowhere. It leads to a life of regret. True potential, the person you could be, isn't found in a comfortable chair. It's found in the fire. It's on the other side of suffering. That comfort zone is a trap, and most people die in it without ever knowing what they were truly capable of.
To really understand that, you say we have to go back to the beginning. You're very clear in the book that your story starts in a place of immense pain, a childhood you describe as being forged in hell. Why is it so critical to start there?
Because you can't understand the mindset without understanding the monster that created it. This isn't about looking for sympathy. It's about showing people that it doesn't matter where you start. The darkness, the abuse, the fear, I learned to use all that. It became the fuel. You have to know the hell I came from to understand how I built myself into the man I am today.
You paint a vivid picture of Skateland. From the outside, it was the family business, but for you, it was a prison. Can you take us there?
Yeah, it was my father's place, David Goggins. To the world, he was this charismatic, successful guy. At home, he was a monster. My brother and I, we were his slaves. We worked every single night until midnight, even on school nights, never got paid a dime. And the fear was constant. Beatings weren't a possibility, they were a guarantee. He'd use his fists, a belt, whatever was handy. My normal was sleeping on a couch in the back office with a loaded gun under the cushion. That was my life at 6, 7 years old. It was pure terror.
You call this the bad hand you were dealt. And even after you and your mom escaped your father, the challenges just kept piling up. It wasn't just one thing, was it?
No way. It was one thing after another. We escaped, but we escaped into poverty. We moved to this small town, Brazil, Indiana, where we were one of the only black families. The racism was immediate and intense, but the real damage was internal. All that trauma, it manifested physically. I was suffering from toxic stress. My hair was falling out. Patches of my skin were losing pigment. I developed this terrible stutter. I couldn't learn. My mind was just scrambled. So, I did what I had to do to survive. I started cheating my way through school. It was the only way to get by.
You use this powerful metaphor in the book that your life was like a fortune cookie that always had the same message inside. What did it feel like to be living that message every single day? David Goggins.
It felt like a death sentence. That message, you were born to fail, wasn't just something I heard. It became the voice in my own head. My father told me I was nothing. The kids at school told me I was nothing. My report cards told me I was nothing. Eventually, you start to believe it. It became my identity. I was that scared, broken, stuttering kid who was never going to amount to anything. And for a long time, I lived down to that expectation.
So at some point, there's a break. You go from being a victim of that story to deciding to fight it. How does that shift happen? Because for a long time, as you said, you were losing that fight badly.
It doesn't happen overnight. It happens when you hit absolute rock bottom. It's when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. For me, that moment came on a random night when I was at my absolute lowest.
Can you describe that low point? What was your life like then?
Pathetic. I was 24, working the graveyard shift for Ecolab, spraying for cockroaches in nasty restaurants for $1,000 a month. I weighed almost 300 pounds. My routine was coming home, getting a box of donuts and a large chocolate milkshake, and just numbing myself. One night I got home and a documentary came on about the Navy SEALs, about Hell Week. I'm watching these guys go through absolute hell, and I'm looking at myself, this soft, fat, broken man, and it just hit me. I was wasting my life. I was living a lie.
That's a powerful moment of recognition. But a lot of people have those moments and then do nothing. So what's the very first concrete step? How do you actually stop the lies and start the change?
David Goggins, You have to face the truth. The raw, ugly, brutal truth. Not the version you tell the people or the soft version you tell yourself. You have to confront it, head on. And there's only one place you can't lie.
And that's what you call the accountability mirror. Can you explain how that works?
David Goggins. It's simple, but it's hard. You stand in front of the mirror and you tell yourself the truth. No more soft language. I didn't say, I'm a little overweight. I looked myself in the eye and said, you're fat, Goggins. I didn't say, I'm not reaching my potential. I said, you're a loser. You're cheating your way through life. You're dumb. You have to be brutally honest with yourself. You can't fix a problem if you don't have the courage to name it for what it truly is.
So what did that process look like for you, standing in front of that mirror, wanting to become a SEAL?
First thing I did was shave my head so I had nowhere to hide. I faced that man in the mirror, and I owned every single one of my failures. Then I got some sticky notes. I wrote down the goals. Not just become a Navy SEAL. I wrote down the daily actions. Run today. Study for 2 hours. I plastered that mirror with my new reality. It became my boss. Every morning, every night, I had to face who I was and who I was trying to become. There was no escaping it.
The results of that process were, well, they're almost unbelievable. This number on the screen, 106. What does that mean?
That's the amount of weight I lost. 106 pounds in less than 3 months. I had to get down to 191 pounds to even be considered for SEAL training, so that mirror drove me. I built a brutal schedule of running, swimming, biking, and studying, all on my own. It was a 24/7 obsession, fueled by pure accountability.
You made the weight, you passed the entrance exam, and you got to BUDS, basic underwater demolition / SEAL training. But you didn't just go through it once. You say you learned to thrive in that crucible. How?
Yeah, getting there was one thing. Staying there was a whole other war. BUDS is designed to find your breaking point. It's a place that strips away everything. Your ego, your strength, your pride. It's pure suffering. And I learned that you don't just survive suffering, you embrace it. It becomes the forge that burns away the weakness and reveals who you really are.
And you certainly faced your share of suffering. You went through Hell Week 3 times in 1 year. That's almost unheard of.
Yeah, first time I got stress fractures in my tibia, roll back. Second time I got double pneumonia, roll back again. Hell Week is 130 hours of nonstop training with maybe a few hours of sleep total. You're always cold, always wet, always miserable. And I had to do it 3 times. But going through that fire repeatedly, being broken down over and over, that's where I found my most powerful weapon. It's the hidden reservoir of strength that I believe everybody has.
So what is that weapon? What is that discovery you made? David Goggins. I call it the 40% rule. It's the understanding that when your mind is telling you that you're done, that you're exhausted, that you can't possibly go any further, you're really only at about 40% of what you're actually capable of. Your brain has a survival mechanism, a governor, that wants to protect you. It screams at you to stop way before your body's actually done. The secret is learning to push past that voice. So this chart illustrates it perfectly. Most of us live our entire lives in that 40% zone, never knowing there's a whole other 60% of potential available to us. Why do we stop? David Goggins, because we listen to that voice that wants comfort. That voice is a liar. It's weak. The moment things get hard, it tells you to quit, go home, get warm. The key to unlocking that other 60% is to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to learn to love the suffering, because that's where the growth is.
So how does someone listening right now start to do that? How do you practically apply this idea of callousing the mind? David Goggins, you do something that sucks every single day. Simple as that. Don't feel like making your bed? Make your bed. Hate running? Go for a damn run, especially when it's raining outside. Don't want to study? Sit down and study. You have to intentionally put yourself in situations that you don't want to be in. Each time you do that, you build a little callus on your mind. Over time, your tolerance for discomfort grows, and things that used to break you become your new normal. Okay, so once you've made that decision to fight and you understand the 40% rule, you say you need an arsenal, a set of mental tools. It's not just about being tough, it's about being strategic.
Exactly. Toughness without strategy is useless. You're going into battle every day with your own mind, and your mind is the ultimate opponent. You better have some weapons ready, because it will try to take you down every chance it gets.
One of your most famous tools is the cookie jar. Can you explain that concept?
The cookie jar is your mental stash of every damn thing you've ever overcome. It's a bank of resilience. I used it for the first time doing a 100-mile race I entered with 0 training. Around mile 70, my body was completely shutting down. I was broken. But Instead of quitting, I reached into my mental cookie jar. I pulled out memories of every past victory, every time I had suffered and survived.
And looking at this list, these cookies aren't just about winning races. They're about surviving immense hardship. Why is remembering that past struggle so powerful?
Because it's undeniable proof. When you're in a moment of extreme suffering, your mind will tell you that you can't do it. But if you can pull out the memory of surviving your father's abuse or teaching yourself how to read when you had a learning disability, that's real fuel. It's proof that you've been to hell before and walked out the other side. It shuts that weak voice up and gives you the strength to take one more step.
So if the cookie jar is a defensive tool, you also have an offensive one you call taking souls. That sounds brutal. What is it?
It is brutal. It's about breaking your opponent's will. The opponent could be another person in a race, or it could be an obstacle in your life. When you see that they are suffering, that they are at their absolute limit, that is the moment you show them that their pain doesn't even touch you. You pick up the pace. You smile. You show them that their maximum effort is just your warm-up. It crushes their spirit, and you feed off that energy.
So when you combine these tools, the accountability mirror, the cookie jar, taking souls, it seems like they're all designed to do one thing, to close this gap between the person we are and the person we could become. Is that the daily battle? David Goggins?
That is the only battle. Every single day. It's the battle to stop being the person governed by comfort and become the person defined by effort. To stop avoiding failure and start learning from it. To stop living at 40% and start clawing your way toward 100%. That's the whole game.
And what is the spark for all of this? What's the question that gets this whole engine started? David Goggins? 2 words. What if? That's the most powerful question in the world. When everyone, your family, your teachers, the voice in your own head is telling you that you can't do something, you have to find the courage to ask, but what if they're all wrong? What if I can lose 106 pounds? What if I can become a Navy SEAL? That question gives you permission to defy the odds and try anyway. This quote seems to tie it all together. In the end, it all comes down to that internal dialogue, doesn't it? David Goggins, it's everything. That voice in your head, it never shuts up. You wake up with it, you go to sleep with it. It can be your worst enemy or your greatest coach. All these tools, the mirror, the 40% rule, the cookie jar, they are all ways to control that conversation. They are ways to make sure you're listening to the right voice. Because the voice you listen to is the life you will live. David, thank you for sharing these powerful and challenging lessons from Can't Hurt Me. This conversation will push so many listeners to confront their limits and rise above them. David Goggins, stay hard. And remember, you're in charge of your own transformation. This has been Sunny's Mindset Lab. Thank you for joining us. See you in the next episode.